Part 2. Late Georgian, 1774 to 1810. During the late Georgian period, the population grew steadily. It became less rural and more urban as people moved into towns from the country. The 1774 London Building Act only applied to London, but was adopted as good practice elsewhere. It was remarkable for several reasons. As well as classifying new dwelling houses into 4 classes or rates, it also identified their inhabitants. The first rate were great houses, like the town residence of the nobility. As such, they were exceptional rather than typical. Typical large houses of the second rate were for merchants. Medium houses of the third rate were for clerks. Small houses of the fourth rate were for mechanics. The large had 3 windows on its main floors, the medium had 2 and the small 1. The large had a string course at first floor level. The medium had the front door offset. Front doors had fan lights above them to light the hallway. The sash windows of the small had to be wedged open. Builders could apply classical proportions to the front of a large terraced house. Builders could use the Act to build houses of any of the rates. They turned the design of the large house into a formula based on the golden rectangle, roughly 7 by 5, like an A4 sheet of paper. Further down the scale, medium-sized houses were built by craftsmen of lesser means on smaller plots. These individual builders could only take on a pair or a single house. They did not always follow a uniform design, so there could be slight variations. The common features were 2 windows on each floor, with the front door offset to one side because it could not be aligned with the windows above. It also needed a fan light to light the hallway. Most had a basement with a small area in front of it. The road level in front was built up by the excavation of the cellar and the foundations. The original ground level was at the back. Large and some mediums had an area in front to light the front basement room and allow service access. Without this, they needed a coal hole for direct delivery of fuel for coal fires, which was standard for heating and cooking. In reception rooms, coal was burnt in hob grates. These retained ash and the unburnt residue known as clinker. The smoke escaped through flues. These were gathered as they rose through the house. Fireplaces and flues were paired with those from the house next door, as were the chimney stacks. The focal point of a room was the fireplace. It may no longer be there, but the chimneys often are. The kitchen was in the basement. In large houses, the kitchen was in the front. Its windows got light from the area, but in mediums they might only have a light well. The basic plan was 2 rooms on each floor, known as a pair, one behind the other. Corridor access to all rooms distinguished a medium from a small. The dog-leg staircase fitted into the more limited space of the medium. In large houses, the main reception room, the drawing room, was on the first floor, the piano nobile. Mediums had a more modest parlour on the ground floor. Earlier, dining had been an informal arrangement in which a table was placed and chairs arranged around it, but in this period a room was assigned for it. Plaster on the walls was new too. It replaced panelling. Chair rails, also known as dado rails, were installed to prevent plaster from being dinged when chairs were moved back against the wall. The back was for services. A water butt, coal in bunkers, and ash from the coal fires were kept here. There was also sewage, which was deposited into a privy or cesspool. The household servants also used the yard as a work area. Sewage was collected by nightmen, who were only allowed to do this during nocturnal hours. Ash was collected by dustmen. It all had to be carried through the house via the basement, or even out of the front door. In the new industrial areas like Birmingham, a new type of small house began to appear, the back-to-back. These houses were one room deep and built around a communal court. This contained shared services. Originally, courts were open on one side to allow access to the services. This could lead to problems later, problems which could affect the occupants of large, medium and small.